Welcome. I'm Bill Wake. We're here working on a calculator to produce useful numbers for kilt makers. And we've got the calculator part done, and we're working on a tool to help you design the pleats, the folds in fabric. All right, we've done a fair bit on this. And basically what we've come to, let's get up the pleat designer. There are a set of variables that we use, and they all have to be coordinated. So let's get over here. Okay, so the first three, notes, that's just a string you can put in, but hip to hip is to measure around the back of your body. The set is the size of the repeat in the tartan, because they always have repeats. And then sets per pleat is how many sets make one pleat. And normally it's one, but there might be circumstances where you use 3/4 or 1.5 or maybe even 2. It might make you use more or less fabric. It might give you a different size pleat and so on. All right. Once you've set these three things, then pleat width is sort of the main thing you're trying to work out. What's a good pleat width for this, and how many pleats do I get? Now, the pleat width is this distance. So this is a piece of fabric looked at from the edge. They look like that, and then the next one comes up. I probably should draw an extra one, but the next one comes up, and there's no gap up on top, but on the bottom, you've got the pleat. But depending how much fabric you're using on these triangles, you may or may not have a gap, or you might possibly have an overlap. So the gap is sort of a consequence of the others, and then the number of pleats, you're choosing that. You want to have, let's say you have a 22-inch hip to hip, and you do 2-inch pleats, well, you'll get 11 of them, and that works out evenly, and it's fine. If you got 12 3/4 or 6.075 or something, it wouldn't be a good situation. So ideally, that's an integer, and this is convenient, but it varies as to whether that happens or not. Let's see. So each of these fields has a corresponding variable. I'm going to rearrange slightly here, put this above them all. So needs required values, that's I don't know what. I guess that's public, because if you haven't set these three values, then you can't set these. All right, let me. And then we have hip to hip measure, sets per pleat, pleatFabric. That's a computation we use. Basically, you're multiplying set times sets per pleat. So you find if it's 1.5 and you got a 6-inch set, that gives you 9 inches to work with. The pleat width, the pleat count, number of pleats, and then the gap. And actually, I think I might want to move pleat count up. Let me do that. I think it's mostly it's closer to hip as far as things go. So I'll make that first. Gap is not editable. I'm not sure how we want to show that. Maybe we'll beep or something. I don't know. Let's see. I think off camera, I modified these a bit to give them a better, to make the titles bold when they're active, and then we did yesterday gray when they're not. So the plain black non-bolded text looked a little weak to me. So we have a new version there. All right. Well, my goal is for today. One thing is the fabric, the pleatFabric is really a consequence. So how many pleats times the fabric per, pleatFabric is set times sets per pleat. Okay. So we sort of can calculate that once you have those two. All right. And let me reorder this so number of pleats shows up earlier. Maybe I can do some work on the form. Maybe we deserve to like use sections or something to break up these two, because I think these are maybe we can make that a little more clear. It's sort of a blob. I don't know what you call it. Just a wall of fields. What do I do? I think we can make it more attractive anyway. All right, and then I do want to move number of pleats up. Okay. Oh, here you can see needs required values. That concept is visible in the fact that they're grayed out. Okay, and I may try. We'll see if we can get the previews going. I don't know. Where did I leave space? Yeah. Okay. Pleat number of pleats up front. Okay. It's also something you tend to edit less. The pleat width is more of a variable. You do change it sometimes, like, oh, I thought I'd try 10. Well, let me try 11 or 9, see if they work better. Okay. All right. This is not to scale, this picture, and I'm not sure why we get this gray blob. It's coming from the form, but I don't know why they don't just shrink to their normal size or to, big enough. All right. Let's see. I did do a couple other things. Let me go here. Off camera. I tweaked the button look on the calculator, so I gave them a little rounded corner and a bit of a shadow. And then I also gave them some animation. They shrink as when you tap them. Well, it's pretty quick to see. If you hold it, you can see it. But just a little tiny bit of motion, I think, will help. Okay. And what else? Empty page. Oh, I one of our future stories is Apron/Pleat, and I just wanted to start getting an idea of what the toolbar is going to look like. So I added that. Oh, and I also shaded in the toolbar with a white semi-transparent background. Again, just to kind of bring out those a little bit. All right. And so today, first thing, we realized, we kind of knew, but we realized these are gap and pleatFabric are derived values. That's probably the word I should have been using here instead of consequences. But let's I won't edit that while you're here. But pleatFabric and gap and also total yardage, which we don't yet support, they're all derived from other variables, so they're not editable. And we want to just make that work as a consequence of things. So I think this should be basically a refactoring. We might want to add a little more test somewhere. Let's see, Pleat designer test. Okay. I'm not sure on, okay. Fabric count. Where is it? pleatFabric. Yeah, I don't know why it's probably should be private. Okay. I don't think we need it to be published. Well, changing is an event that people want to see. It will have consequences people need to see. So I'll leave it marked published. But in usage, it should be private. That should be fine. Well, run tests. Okay. We're checking it. Well, there's no harm in it. Just because we don't show it doesn't mean it can't be a public thing. We could show it. But yeah, okay. I'll leave that. All right. And then let's do gap. So when gap is set, it's either set to nil or, in this case, it's set to 0, but normally it's set to 3 times pleat width minus the pleatFabric. Okay, so a normal pleat, a pleat with no gap, 1/3 of the fabric is on top, 1/3 on the left side, 1/3 on the right side, forming that triangle we saw. And so this gap figures out, given that, how much do you have left if the pleat width is not exactly 1/3 of the thing. So, in effect, it's a function of pleat width and fabric. All right. Now, in the cases where it's set to 0 up here, it's it really is 3 times, because we made pleatFabric. pleatWidth is pleatFabric divided by 3. So when you set pleatWidth and then you multiply it by 3, and then you'll get pleatFabric, and then you subtract pleatFabric, you get 0. So the same formula works for both. So I think what we'll do, okay, let me check a test on gap. I don't know if we test gap directly. Well, there's nil. Set was set per pleat, nil sets nil for pleat width and gap. Okay, that is true. Okay, good. That's the test I wanted to make sure we had. We got tests for 0. We got tests for non-zero. All right, so I think those tests will support the refactoring. All right, so what we're going to do is put basically a get on it, and we want to return, well, we'd like to return this in the ideal case. All right, if I do that, I'm going to have these cases where, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I got to do that. Okay. Well, I'm leaving out the cases where gap is nil, and I guess I don't need to do that. If was it needs required values, in other words, some of our prerequisites are nil, then we're just going to return nil. Otherwise, we'll return this. Now, we haven't quite dealt with pleat width yet, but we don't need to set this. That much is true. I'll just mark them out for now because we're going to be back here. We don't need to set this one. And this one. And this one. And a fixed fractional pleat count. I don't know. It's a little weird. Yeah, so you tell them, if you say I want a 2-inch pleat, then I mean that's fine if it's 22 inches or 20 inches or any other even number, but if it's 17 inches, 2 doesn't divide evenly, and it would say, oh, you need 8.5 pleats. But if you force it to 8, then it's not going to be 2 inches anymore. And if you force it to 9, it's not going to be 2 inches. So I'm anticipating warning. I'll probably have to consult my domain expert, because it may be that they would rather have it force one way or the other. I don't know. I think what I'm anticipating is we start drawing boxes around the elements that aren't right and give a message. So if it's a fractional of pleat count, we would mark that box red and then give a message about it. All right, so let's see. I think this should be good. Well, pleatFabric. Public var. It's like it's not. Published var gap adult property wrapper. Can I be okay? Can I assign to gap? Cannot. Cannot assign. Can I do this? If I want it not editable. Huh. Well, that one is like this one. Well, not even that. Okay, let's adjust it. Okay. This is, the contents is text. There's no line limit. Designer.gap with the title gap. which maybe we want to change. Exact matches in call to text initializer. Oh, it's this number. Okay. Text, gap, bold, that. All right. And then well, these two will keep. Okay. And then no exact matches call to interpolate. What? Yeah, that's an idea. What's going on here? No exact matches in call to interpolate. Maybe I do this. Gap. Else. Oh, this one's. Do we have a function for this somewhere? Yeah, format optional. Okay, let's do that. So turn it into a string for us, I hope. Yep. Okay. Designer. Okay. Format optional designer. Oh, dot gap. Okay, let's try again. I do expect tests to pass. I think I'm effectively refactoring. There's a little gap. The one thing I saw suspicious was pleatWidth doesn't look for all three of its prerequisites. And pleatCount, same deal. All right, but I think they should. We just haven't demonstrated the problem. All right. So that's cool. Let's see. So make gap a property of the variables. Well, make gap a derived value. Computed from the state. All right, now pleatFabric. Whoops, designer. pleatFabric. All right, so let's see where that's being set. It's set to nil. It's set to this. pleatWidth. pleatCount. Okay. Well, it's going to have the same rules, so let's do the same thing. If needs required, I almost should return 0, but we've been returning nil, so let's do that. Otherwise, what's that? Okay, and then is anybody let's find all the places that are using it. Should we setter? Oh yeah, the property thing comes off. pleatFabric and no longer published. Okay. And I don't think we don't reference that in public, so there's no problem there. Okay. Take out that. Okay. Good. Okay, make pleatFabric be a derived value. Yeah, okay. So, well, let's go look at, I think that's what we've got next. Okay, we've done that. All right, pleatWidth and pleatCount. I think they just need to use that same flag, and I think it will be covered because they, like here we can see they do stuff to get around making sure the field is there. Okay, so in effect, if the field hip to hip is nil, then we're going to make this thing nil, just like up here. Okay, so let's do pleatCount first. If needs required. All right, return. Okay, so we're not going to do anything. We're not going to try and update any variables if we don't have the values. Okay. If the update's not in progress, then set it to progress, change hip, and update in progress is false. And then change width. If not update in progress, well, not, is that right? Oh, let me, did I run the tests? Let's do it that way. And then we'll do the same thing down here. Okay. Make them check for required values already set. Okay. Now I'm getting lost on this needs required values. I'm sorry, update in progress. So update in progress starts false. We set it to true. We say update the pleat width. Is that going to work? Oh, we set the pleat width. Update in progress is true, so not true is false, so we don't update pleat count back, going back. Okay, yeah, that seems right. All right, now needs required values tells us that this is always non-nil. So let's take this out. Okay, now there's, okay, boy, the mechanism for this is annoying. Would it benefit from a shadow kind of variable? Well, let's make sure everything's still good before I get too crazy here. Make pleat width, assume hip measure is present. Okay. Now, gosh, is there a better way around this thing? That's my question. So what I'm wondering is if we had some sort of underlying value that we could just freely set, but that wouldn't set the other one. And notice, I mean, these are, right? This is basically hip to hip equals pleat width times pleat count. like multiplied by both sides, right? So we're maintaining this sort of, well, it's a three-way relationship, but we're assuming hip to hip is constant for this part of the process. It's already set, then we can change one of these two. If we change the other two, if we change hip width, hip measure, it reestablishes these as being not computed. And if we change it, it reestablishes them by the default, like a perfect pleat, and the count deals with the consequences. Okay. Now, so what I'm wondering, like for a given hip measurement, right? I guess you got to know which one's being changed. I don't know. Update in progress might sets and clears the flag. Yeah, set it to false and else. Well, if the flag is set, then we're not gonna. If the flag is not set, yeah, we gotta make sure this is right. Thinking, if it's false, it's set to true and does the calculation. Otherwise, it clears the flag. If the update is not in progress, then we're trying to set the corresponding value. If an update is in progress, no, we don't want to clear it, because maybe the caller sets it. I mean, this to me makes you're bracketing this with the update in progress change. That part feels okay. Is it always the case? If hip tip changes, everything's recomputed to a default. So that one's kind of they're reset to nil and then computed again. Yeah, that seems more confusing with the flag stuff. I don't know. Gosh, I mean, there's this algebraic thing going on, right? Width times pleats equals hip measure. And if you reset it, hip measure, we reset pleat width and pleat count. Right? That's up here. We reset pleat width and pleat count. And we're, again, following that same rule. I mean, I don't know. Is there some object? Maybe this is an experiment. All right. So what I'm imagining is, this is a product constraint, multiply constraint, and it's got fields A, B, and C. I guess they're all doubles. B is double, and C is double question mark. They're all question marked. Okay. Now, if you, let's say, set A, and you give it a value, all right. Maybe this is, I don't know, x times y. Does that make more sense? Actually, it's x1, x2. Okay, x because they're kind of multiplied. if you call set A, well, if value is nil, then A, I guess we're going to clear everybody. Let's give it a clear. Okay, its value is nil, clear. All right. Otherwise, well, how do we know which ones? If you say I want the product to be this, okay, I'm gonna say A equals value. Okay, and then I'm going to assume x1 stays the same. And x2 is A divided by x1. And we're going to decide what happens if x1 is nil. Just trying to get a feel for if this will work. Func set x1. x2. Okay, I'm going to call this fixed. Come on. Public. Oh, class. No, I don't want you to change the comments for me. Quotes. No, thank you. Wow, that's a new feature. A bad feature. Okay. All right. So fixed. It's fixed if x1 is nil. Well, I'm going to set x2 to nil and return. Okay, so if x1 is nil, we can't maintain a relationship. Okay. Does this make sense? Okay, so set x1 is going to force x2 to change. If, I don't know, if the value is, if fixed is nil, does it make sense? Well, we certainly want to set x1 equal value, right? And then if value is nil or x fixed is nil, I don't know, I'm thinking, yeah, if x is nil, it must not change x2. Yeah, and I'm not sure if the nils are helping us. All right. In any case, return. It's kind of a guard in the middle, which is not ideal. All right, but then x2 equals value divided by x1. Fixed. Divided by x1. Okay, because fixed is always x1 times x2. So if you know x1, yeah, that would keep the constraint. And then I think there's a similar, oops. Okay, x2 equals value. Then if value is nil or fixed is nil, return. Otherwise, set x1 equal fixed divided by x2. Now this is funny to me. So if you set fixed, if x1 is nil, it modifies x2. Otherwise it computes x2 from I'm going to try renaming this and see if it helps me any. This is sort of the priority. Priority 1. Priority 2. So it's maintaining a relationship. I don't know if it's better or not, but it's maintaining a relationship. Yeah, we gotta, if x1 changes x2, it needs to know that x1 changed. Right. So I think that's what that's the kind of stuff we were doing around in the old, in the original code. I'm trying to get this to work without needing that update in progress flag, because I think that's a bit confusing. Not that this is so much better, but I think what I'm saying is there's a fixed value. If you set it, I mean, maybe it's priority 1. Maybe it's product. I'm not sure it's some amazing variable name choice is going to salvage what's going on here. All right. Okay, so A is now product. No, that was... I mean, you can see that same equation, right? 3 times. Well, the same relationship. It's the same equation twice. Okay. All right. So if you set the product No, I don't think this is right. If priority 1 is nil, then I guess it's if priority 2 is nil, right? You got to look at that. Well, does it work from a... the function side of things. There's a view for that, right? I never use this view. What do I call it? Multiply constraint. Okay, so yeah, we gotta watch that nil. So that makes me wonder if this object should only come into effect when it's not nil. All right, so if you set priority 1, set the product, then we got to change the two numbers to be something that equals that product. And presumably we're going to make one of them change and one of them deal with it. Okay, so I think this is, if priority 1 is nil and priority 2 is nil, then we just return because there's nothing we can do about that. I think. Then if priority 1 is nil, then priority 2 must not be nil, and we're going to do the priority 1 thing. So I don't know. Okay, and return. And then otherwise, we have priority 1 is not nil, so we're going to set priority 2. So we only use priority 2. The second case is priority 2 is set. Let's say priority 2 is not nil. If priority 2 is not nil and priority 1 is nil, maybe I can say them both. It's redundant, but it'll probably optimize it out anyway. If priority 1 is nil and priority 2 is not nil, then we're going to change priority 1. Otherwise, priority 2 is nil. Well, priority 1 is not nil and priority 2 is nil, so we're going to set priority 2. I think that's all right. Yeah, the did set thing. Unfortunately, you can't provide both a get and a set and a did set and a will set. You know, like you don't get a mix and match. So you either control how it sets or you just take your lumps. All right, now the thing that's true at the end of each branch. Let's say it that way. Set product. If value is nil clear, so if you say set the product to nil, okay, then we're just going to set everybody to nil. Otherwise, we're going to save product, and then the thing we want to prove is product. I'm not sure this one's quite right. If what I'd like to be true is the end of this is product equals priority 1 times priority 2. Okay. And, you know, these two branches ensure that. But this one just says leave them nil if you just don't know what the answer should be. And I don't know if it would be better to say it's 1 and then priority 2 is value. All right, let's see what we think of that. Priority 1 equals 1, priority 2 equals value. Okay, so at this point, if value is nil, everybody's nil. I'm sorry, if fixed is nil, product is nil, everybody's nil. Otherwise, product is equal to priority 1 times priority 2. Okay, and we do that in some cases by division, and in some cases by just setting values. All right. Now, when you set priority 1, we're going to set the value. Is that true? If the value is nil, we'll just live with the nil. I don't know if that's right though, because if product, there's such a simple relationship. Why can't we make it hold? All right. So what if you took nil out of the equation and you just said product is always set? What would that do? I don't know. This is complex. I mean, it's maintaining the relationship. And yeah, it's definitely a circular relation. So, I mean, it's a little weird. Okay, let me take out the nils. I mean, this is all spiked, right? So we're just going to change these to pure doubles. Okay, there's no... We're not going to have a clear because we only use that one in a nil case. This thing's going to get funny. I'll take out all these bangs. Okay. Well, maybe this is all it is. Okay, they're not nil. So if we set product, we're going to keep priority 1, keep product, keep priority 1, and change priority 2. Okay, that makes sense. If we set priority 2, sorry, if we set priority 1, then we got to adjust priority 2, and product stays the same because product is the most important. Okay, and then if we set priority 2, well, then we do want to change priority 1. This is not bad. Has no initializers. Why is that? Stored property product without initial value. Well, okay, I do want an initializer. Init product of double. All right, and product equals product. Priority 1 equals 1. Priority 2 equals product. Okay. Well, it would... Yeah, they'd each be checking the opposite flag if we use 2 flags, right? Because width needs to know, like, oh, don't update yourself if you're in the middle of being forced to update. You know, don't update count. All right, this feels better to me. It reflects. Okay, every time 2 values get updated, right? So product, if you set the product, then we're going to update priority 2, keep priority 1 fixed. If you set priority 1, we're going to set it and then adjust priority 2 to match. I'm thinking maybe this is factor. I'll fix the method name shortly. Okay. Yeah, so this one's ambiguous, so we just arbitrarily pick and say factor 1 is 1, factor 2 is product. Now product equals factor 1 times factor 2. This one is similar. We're going to let factor 2 do the varying. Okay, because it's lesser priority. Okay. And we do have to know which ones. Okay. Now, if you had something like this, I guess I'm reasonably convinced without testing it that this maintains that relationship between the three variables, giving the product the highest priority, the factor 1 the second, and the factor 2 the third. So how would it be used? Well, I think it's only going to happen I mean, what I'd want to do is create this thing when hip size gets in there, and we'll create it with product. And then we would take these two, pleatWidth and pleatCount would come from that. They would I don't know. Can I make a property that's get and set? Oh, I use a different name. X. I don't know what the word for this thing. X under. Is it value? New value. Okay. Property wrapper cannot be applied to a computed property. Okay. Okay, so I would I just don't think it fits. I don't know. These couple extra lines, I mean, it's really 4 lines of boilerplate to support 1 line of actual adjustment. They're so similar. I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's something here that's right, but it doesn't fit very well with the needs of the publishing side. Now, it doesn't have to be published. Well, it kind of does, because the text field needs to update that field. And if it does, we would set the others, but they wouldn't know to get to it. I don't know. I'm gonna stop here. I think that was an interesting experiment. If if we ever had more factors to maintain, something like this would. I feel like I've never run across exactly how you do this kind of constraint thing. I know it's done. Like, I don't know, the graphics system does that. Yeah, if you change count sorry, would set factor 1, set factor 2. Yeah. If you change count, hip size does not get triggered. That's correct. So you're saying I want to how wide do my pleats have to be if I want to maintain X number of pleats? Okay. And then the count one, I think we can actually play with it and run it and see kind of how it's going to go. I mean, this is looking much more symmetrical, and I'm glad about that. Okay, let's get to pleats. All right, let's say 24, nice divisible number. Set is 6. Okay, if you do a 24-inch, if you set the set to 6 with 1 set per pleat, it needs 12 pleats of 2 inches each. So 1/3 of the product of these two is 2, no gap. I think you're right, that derived gap we'll work on the format of that, but that's good. Okay, now if let's say I had a set of 5, and my width is 1 2/3, and I get 14.4. Well, it would be nice to say, let's just do 14. What would you get? Okay. Well, I get a very ugly pleat width, 1.7. I mean, we can work with it, but it's a little off. What if I did 15, which actually odd numbers work better. 1.6 with a little overlap. 0.1 inch overlap. That would certainly be acceptable. So 15 pleats might be better. And actually, I think if I understand, odd numbers of pleats actually are kind of nicer, because then the center of the middle pleat is symmetric when you're there. So your symmetry is on a stripe, not on a gap. Okay. But you definitely would do odd or even sometimes. Okay, so I sort of get I have the two scenarios now that sort of fall from that. Okay. Wow, where are we? Time-wise, 2 o'clock. Okay. Well, I think I want to do a little work on the idea of adding sections to this. I'm probably not the best namer of these things. Okay, we like this. All right. So I think you just say section. Let's see. If you change count, hip size doesn't get triggered. Right. Okay. Sorry, I already read that. Let's see. Swift UI section. I think you just throw them in there with a text. Section header. Oh, let's do form. My spelling is. Section to organize content. Each section has custom content provided on a per instance basis. Okay, header. Content header. Okay. Well, let's try it. Okay, so this one I'm going to let be. This one is let's just do this for now. Section. Oh, title is required. And it's these 3 fields. And then this section is adjustable. And it's 2 fields. Pleats and pleatWidth. And this section is Hmm. I want to say consequences. Derived sounds very mathematical to me, and not like kilt maker lingo. Um, what if I just say width? Okay, let's. Oh, something's not heavy. Trailing closure passed. Does not accept a closure. Oh. Okay, and oh, still got that. Nope. Okay. That's true. It could be without a title. And let's take the title out. Okay. Now it's clearly getting just scrolling territory. And I don't scroll. Okay, so this. Oy, oy. Form VStack should probably be scroll view. Is that all I got to do? I can't remember. Yeah. Okay. Hmm. I don't think that should be a problem. No, that's not that. I know I might have to say axes. Okay, scroll view. Well, okay, put it in the around the VStack. Okay. Yeah. What's going on? I thought that either of those should have worked. You. There's the VStack and the scroll view around it. Well, I always try the border method. Okay, it apparently disappeared. Let's put some text. Okay, I'm gonna turn the preview on if I can. Put some text. And then where's your... Okay, that's there. Form. Well, form style should talk about form, right? Yeah. No? Frame height infinity, okay. Let's, well, I don't think it's the sections because notes is not one of them. Okay. That's on the form. Oh, I'm scrolling. So weird. What if I just put it on the form? Let's just put a concrete number in here. Huh. Yeah, that maybe that would help. Is it axis? Take out my 600. I mean, 600 is not. It's just made up. Oh. And that's relying on my font and all that stuff. Okay. Let's see about Swift UI form in scroll view shrinks to nothing. Yeah, shrink to content. That's kind of what I want. He's got him in a stack. Doesn't scroll view. Okay. You need preference key to calculate the size of your scroll view content. Oh, use geometry reader. Scroll view does not center. Okay, well, does this work would be a good question. Oh, does it work if I enter stuff? It's not disabling it. Okay, good. All right. Get this display. Scroll view requires finite intrinsic content size. Well, maybe that's what I have to do is wrap the silly form. I mean, I think that's kind of what some of this was doing. I mean, geometry reader is the thing that knows the size, right? Get size. None of this is Size preference key, size modifier, size, get size. Compare the height of your content with get size, the height of the scroll view with geometry reader, and set it appropriately. Ugh. Okay. Tell you what, let's take a break. 3 or 4 minutes. We'll come back and see if I mean, this is sort of marginally acceptable to me. We'll try it with some different phones and make sure that's plausible on any of these. But I noticed it before that it was shoving in a bunch of extra room on the bottom for no apparent reason. I don't know why they don't just make the ideal size be, you know, big enough to accommodate the contents. Okay. Anyway, let's take that break. Welcome back. Let's see. I spent a few minutes trying to search for other things that would let us determine the height of a form. This is the suggestion using Geometry Reader like we sort of expected. I don't know. This one does it in the background. You can get the height of the scroll view content. This one's somewhat similar. Oh, always prints 10. Well, let's try this. Oh, that is. Well, let's see what we get here. I hate to bury this in more and more and more stuff. Geometry Reader in. End of the form is here. Well, I can't do anything with it. Oh, the form. Okay, let's push this up. This is the end of the Geometry Reader. Okay, so theoretically, height should be geometry dot size dot height. All right, let's try that. Let's try it over here first. This is iPhone SE3. Wrap the scroll view in a Geometry Reader, then use the height to set the minimum height of the V-stack. Yeah, I guess I'm trying to level down. This is oddly slow. So impatient. It seems so weird if I can compile it and run it in less time than it takes to get the silly preview to build. Okay, this is a new phone. I'm surprised it does it like this. Well, that's going to take a minute too, isn't it? No. Let's set the height. The form won't get bigger than the display. Is there min height? Is that it there? um, and height is 10. Okay, that's exactly the problem this person said. Every time it comes out 10. Okay, now this one, they put it on the background of the contents of the form. Well, good, it's going to do me to print that. Like, I don't know how to get that value anywhere, but I'll be curious if it works. All right, so where's the end of the form? We're just getting a raw print, and then I'm gonna get 10. Okay, I'm gonna take out the geometry reader. Oh, thank you, reformatter. Okay. I guess that will do. It's okay on this SE. All right, let's go back to the, I guess that was that one. Okay. Let's see. We put form and picture in a scroll view. Yeah, I expect someone will look at it and go like, ah, you clearly missed this. But yeah, not me. Okay, we'll run this once more. Let's see where we are on the to-dos. pleatWidth and pleatCount. Okay, oh, total yardage. That shouldn't be too hard. And it's another output, so it kind of fits what we just did. Okay, right. Total yardage. Okay, so there's a value. Well, let's put a test in. Okay, so I'm flipping my order around here, aren't I? Let's see. When required fields not set, total yardage is nil. We'll start with an error case, I guess. It starts out like that, so let's assert equal designer.total yardage. Total yardage is nil. Okay, so we have to have a total yardage. Oh, maybe total inches. Total fabric. Yeah. Well, I guess it's going to pass, right? If it runs, if it deigns to run it the first time. Okay. Xcode. I don't think I've upgraded that recently. It just seems a little flaky these days. Okay. Right. And then tests when required fields present. Total yardage. People asking for UI screen means. But isn't that the screen size? Like I don't. Your screen main bound size. Yeah, I don't see how that would be the form. Right, but I mean, there's nothing that says the form has to be smaller than a screen either, you know. So I don't know. I'll just try it on the range of phones, small to big, and make sure I get a number that's big enough for any of them, and hope for the best. I guess for now, it seems like well, I don't know why a form's ideal height is not, the sum of the fields form, the fields inside the form, with whatever spacing it wants and all that. But it seems like it should just know that. That seems a little weird. I'll just say is calculated. All right. Let's see. We'll do the same start. We'll set the hip. Hip tip measure equals 22. Well, 20 is a lot easier to work with. The set is 5. Okay, and so that should set 5 inches per pleat. Well, let's do 6. Okay, so that gives us 2-inch stripes, which gives us 10 times 6. So it should be 60. It should be 60. Is that what I believe? So 2-inch stripes, or 2-inch pleats, and means you'll need 10 of them. 10 times the set width is 60. Okay. Right. Okay, and this is pleatFabric. times pleat count. All right, and same thing. If we kind of got this by default, needs required value, return nil. Okay, we can't calculate it if our required values aren't there. And I gotta say return now. Okay. Yeah, if it's an even number of pleats, but in some cases it won't be. Let's get it displaying. Well, let's check that in. Compute total fabric. Okay, and then pleat view. Well, we just kind of want one of these. And play with that. Okay, so this is designer dot total fabric. Okay. That may be more than we can say. All right. Okay, well. All right, so let's take our example 20, set of 6. Total is 60. Now, I don't like these 0.0s. Okay, but if I said, well, what if I did 20 pleats? My pleat width would be 1. And total fabric 120. So 20 times 6. Yeah. Okay. And if I made my pleat width 4, it's one quarter, 40, 30. Okay. Now, okay, so this is the thing is there's constraints. All right. The two other things I want to come out. One is there are erroneous situations, right? So if I did pleat with 3, well, I get a weird number of pleats. Okay, because 3 doesn't divide into 20, or 6 doesn't divide into 20. That should get a message. I mean, that just seems off. Now, if I did 7, I get a pleat width of 2.85 and a gap. Okay. That's okay-ish. It yeah, I think a normal thing would be to say, like, okay, 10 comes out even, right? Whoops. I don't know what I typed on. Pleat width equals hip measure. Can that be nil? Right. We haven't covered that case. Yeah, I do need to do that too. You can edit. You can make a thing nil. Okay, yeah, we need to worry about pleats and pleat width being set to nil. Okay, so okay, I think total fabric is okay. All right, make sure our tests are passing, but we got a hole. Whoops. Oh, that's what I bumped. Okay. Um, all right. Now, what I wanted to try was moving these two out. To its parent. So that's on the section. Okay, they are grayed out and disabled. These two. Well, I don't know why they need to be disabled. Because they're read only anyway. This 20. Oops. 20. A very large person. 6. Okay. Now, yeah, there. If I take this out, yeah, that's not clear. They're just okay. I don't think this applies to these things because they don't really need to worry about disabled because they're output only, and they already throw a question mark up there if they're not happy. $26. Okay. If I delete pleatWidth, boom. Okay. Yeah. So, all right. So I should make sure tests are running. Check in that UI change. What you do when you set count or width to nil. I think the other, well, what would be the, I mean, gap is going to have to be nil. Is that true? Actually, no, I don't think it affects gap, but it does affect count. Okay. Add total fabric to view. Okay. So if I say hip width is, well, I should be able to set just one of these at a time, right? So that seems funny. Let's do something different. Okay. I mean, it sets them initially. Yeah, maybe that would be the thing to do if just not let you set it to a illegal value or a nil. Delete, we assume it's 1. Yeah, so that would sort of force it. If you deleted this, it turns this into a 1, which changes pleat width to whatever. If you delete this, change it to 1, forces this to, an alternative is if you set, well, maybe that's the best thing. I can't control it over here, though, unfortunately. And the other way would be if you set pleats to nil. Sorry, another way would be if you set pleats to nil, it's just nil. And the consequences are you can't calculate total fabric because total fabric relies on the pleat count. Now these two, pleatFabric relies on the required ones. So if they go away, this already returns nil. But if pleat count is nil, this should probably return nil. And then gap is a function of pleatWidth and pleatFabric. Only pleatWidth matters. So if pleatWidth is nil, yeah, that's going to blow up here, right? Yep. Okay, so if pleatWidth is nil, you can't get a gap. If pleat okay, let's make that the case that these two fields, if they don't have their prerequisites, they return nil and refuse to try and calculate. That seems consistent with what we've done so far. All right, so let me set this up with pleatWidth being nil and gap should be nil. Okay, so how about gap nil? I may have a test that already does this. No, I don't. Okay. Let's see. So set pleatWidth. Let's say this. Set pleatWidth to nil. Sets pleatCount to nil. Does that need to do that? And can leave it 12. Yeah, no, I don't think it should set pleatCount, but it should set gap to nil. Okay, and this is kind of what we need. Okay, set hit to hip, set pleatCount. That sets pleatWidth. Okay, and then if we set pleatWidth is nil, then I'm saying pleatCount should still be 10. pleatWidth should be nil, but gap should be nil. Okay, this test is going to fail, I'm pretty sure. Or yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, it doesn't care if hip to hip is not done, but I think it's simpler to just like let it say, we're not going to produce values on these other values if the required fields aren't there. But yeah, we could make that other call. Oh, okay. Well, it blew up. Yeah. So all right. So now I'm saying, if needs required values or pleatWidth is nil, return nil, and this test should pass instead of crash. pleatWidth double. Right. Is same thing here. If pleatWidth gets set to nil, we're not going to update. Okay. Good. All right. Now we want to find some pleat count stuff. Okay. Set pleat count to nil. Oh, well. Set total fabric to nil. Okay, so if we set pleat width, okay, pleat count is set, but if we clear it, nil. All right, pleat count should now be nil. Pleat width should be 2. And we care about total fabric. Okay, I think this will force both those. Right. Okay. Yeah. So if count is nil, if it's nil, we're not gonna do this. And then I think the total fabric will still fail. Yep. Okay. Required fabric, or if pleat count is nil. Yeah, I'm going back to your comment. A gap doesn't need to check required. In a way, in a way, it does only need to check pleat fabric and pleat count. If we guarantee they're nil when their prerequisites are not, pleat fabric. I think they're being a little stricter than they have to be, but I guess I'm going to be. I'm okay with that they don't return when there's no prerequisite values, and I'm kind of okay knowing that pleat fabric is nil, because this is the only way pleat fabric gets to be nil is because this is there. Otherwise, I have to check that too. All right, so make sure setting pleat count or width to nil doesn't crash. Make sure total fabric and gap are nil. Yeah. Okay. I think that's kind of all this is doing, is enforcing these constraints between these things. All right. Now, message. Okay, total yardage for pleats. Yay. Take what we got there. All right. There's two things, and I'm not sure to keep them separate or not, but one is when you produce something, I would like us to say what you've got. And if it's, I think there are 4 possibilities. So one is, oh, interesting. Okay. I can scroll the form. Yeah, okay, it was weird. One possibility, excuse me, one possibility is it's a straight box plate with no gap. And that's when gap is 0. If gap is, let's say, or 0.25, then we call it a box plate with gap. If the gap is even bigger, like if it, let's say we had so much fabric it extended past this, that would be, we'd start getting into this military box plate. And then if the gap is negative, then we would call that an overlap. And that I would call it a box plate with a slight overlap, basically. Yeah, a very small overlap, if it's an eighth of an inch overlap or something, that's a box plate with an overlap. You can be symmetric on both sides. If it gets to be too big, which I think is maybe a 1/4 inch or so, then you switch over and you do a military box plate. So like at some point, right, if this is 2 inches and you've got 3 inches of fabric here, like if you have more than you can have 2 inches if you laid it out the long ways, but if you had more than 2 inches on this side, it would stick out all the way over there, and it just doesn't make sense geometrically. It'd be all bunched up or something. So that's no good. But so one output is what's the name of the result? It's either box plate with small gap, box plate with small overlap, or military box plate, I think is the 4 names we're going to give. We're not really handling military from a graphic point of view. Actually, our graphic doesn't have the values that are in here, so that's a problem. But yeah, and ideally, I mean, looking longer term, it would be nice to have the same graphic for the military style. Like it would be nice to have one that had no gap, one that had a small gap, one that had a small overlap, and one that had a military and a smooth thing to go based on the gap. Okay. Another thing is this is really, it's gap or it's overlap. It depends. If it's greater than, if it's less than 0, we should call it an overlap, and this should reflect that. So that's another issue. Gap versus overlap. Negative gap is an overlap. Okay. All right. Then the error situation. Okay, we already dealt with the values nil, so I think that's fine. But if the pleat width is greater than this times this, okay, let's see what happens. 20. Oh, I gotta run. Okay, 20 and 5. Okay. Now, if my pleat width, that's interesting. Yeah, we got to worry about these almost 0 situations. Yeah, we're gonna have to do some rounding and yeah, I'm gonna have to do lines with the properties. Yeah. If pleat width, this is only 5 inches to work with. If the pleat width is 6, like, oh, what's going on here? That theoretically, there's no way for a pleat, if you got 5 inches of fabric, you can't make a 6-inch pleat. I mean, really, you can't make a 4.5-inch pleat probably, but, it makes no sense. And it deserves an error. I don't know if we can bound it. Maybe we can. Okay. I would say, can we bound it so they can't type it in the first place, or we just error message it and restrict it? Okay, gap less than 0 is not a problem. Okay, that's the slight overlap I mentioned. But gap greater than the pleat size, okay, well then it's not a pleat, right? Because if the material is, there's no the distance from here to here is the whole pleat, I'm just stretched out flat. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to check that. I mean, it definitely a gap. I mean, like, I couldn't get an exact number, but like a 1/4 inch was like, oh, that's kind of flaky, I don't know if that's a function of the pleat width, or if it's just like, well, once you start getting gaps, that it sort of interferes. And from the sort of style of the thing. Like if my gap were, 1.9 inches or 1 point whatever inches, and I just had a little tiny pleat, you know, this notion of it flashing interesting colors, it would be kind of mutilated because it would just almost be like the back and the front, and it wouldn't be very much fabric to show any spread, as opposed to like the knife pleated one where the pleats are super deep. It just completely shows the spread. So I'm gonna have to get a number for that. But if the gap is greater than or equal to pleat, like there's clearly it just physically can't happen to be greater. So I mean, like, what are you gonna do? Stretch the fabric, So, all right. So gap greater than pleat. Same thing for the overlap. Or overlap. Oh, well, I guess I could just say absolute value. If the absolute value of the gap is greater than pleat. Okay, so the overlap case would be, let's say we had a 10-inch set. A 10-inch set and a 2-inch pleat. Okay, the gap is -2, so that says a 2-inch overlap. Does that even work? Well, let's make it a 12-inch pleat gap set. Pleat width of 2. Yeah, so here my gap is -3, which means my overlap is 3 inches, but like I can't overlap them. The most I could overlap is 2 inches with a 2-inch pleat. So the 3-inch overlap, whatever you tried to overlap one side or the other, would have to like fold up and come back or something. So again, it's not a valid place. Negative values, I don't know if I can enter them. That's -5. I can. Okay. Negative values for number of pleats, pleat width, or, well, total fabric is pleats times sets per pleat. Yeah, or any of the required values. Yeah, in that case, with a super big overlap, it would have to be military, or knife is the other option, where you put all the pleat on one side. Yeah, there's no way otherwise. Okay. Negative gap is an overlap. Okay, so change the label. All right. So, yeah, from a utility thing, I don't think I have to worry about the negative stuff as much as the, well, I think these problems would be intuitive to a user of this. So I'm inclined to make the message the thing. Let's see. So I'm gonna call it like result, and we'll put it up here. I don't know. Maybe up in here. Right. Okay, so I want to say if all right. Let's test the messages. Oh, see so much here. Ugh. Let's say none. Okay, so let designer is pleat designer, and it starts out with 2 null fields in the required. So xct designer.message, and we'll just take an empty string. Okay. Pleat designer has no message. Sort of an arbitrary failure, but it should fail. Good. Okay, we'll just return nil. Okay, so we add message field. And then I think we could just display it. So I guess after this text designer.message, but I want to say, is it opacity the way to go? Designer.message is nil, then 0, else 1. Okay, I'm only going to show the message if it's empty. Okay. Let's run. And we'll give it a font and all that. Oh, you don't like the colon here? Okay. Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah, I know it's weird. Like the form, it's like the form is in the scroll view and the design is not. We'll have to check that. Okay. But this, maybe it goes up top. I don't know. It's kind of a consequence. Well, it doesn't go there. What if it's down here? Let's not worry about is empty. Maybe, okay, what does that look like? I don't know, title is kind of big. Try this. All right. Yeah, after total fabric. Okay. Yeah. And I'd like that centered. Okay. And I'm going to change the default. It should say type not determined. Okay, and this will be type not determined. Okay, when it exists, Oh, the centering doesn't work there. That's a little small. Got the preview, have another try. And let's check out our spacing on this scroll view. Huh. Is that weird or what? So I've got this form. Now this gets put in. Okay. And if we change enough to do it, 24. Okay, that looks better. I would still like that centered. But what the heck is going on with the scroll view? Maybe I don't need these spacers. Right? So it's, oh no. This is the form. So it's a V-stack of a form and a pleat drawing, and yet it doesn't give it enough room there. So let me bump this up. Is that the issue? I guess it is. Okay, I'll run that again. Make sure it wasn't subtle. Now, maybe we want the label above the drawing. That might be a more... Okay, I think that's all right. Okay, maybe I just bumped up the size of the thing enough to make it... yeah, basically that's the problem. I'm setting a fixed size, and if it gets above it, then it's going to look funny. All right. But anyway, we've got the message in the view. All right. Now, let's go back to the tests. Okay. So another message is box pleat. Okay, so if we do the designer, hip is, let's mix it up a little. 10's a little small, but I don't know, my grandson probably got a 20-inch, probably less than 20-inch waist. The set is 6. Well, let's say 3. Okay, and so that should fill out the stuff, and that should give a perfect 1-inch pleat with no gap, and it should just be a box pleat. Okay, that should fail. Okay. Now, all right. If needs required values, then return that. Okay. Well, maybe I should flip it, but yeah, let's flip it. Let's say if gap is 0, then we're going to return box pleat. Okay. Otherwise, it's not determined. Oops. Spool question mark. I'm going to change this to maybe this can't be determined. Okay, so I just have to see it. All right, so if this is 10, this is 3, we get a 1-inch pleat, 10 pleats, no gap, box pleat. Okay, I really don't like that there. Okay, let's change our view yet again. Back to this. Yeah. Type can't be determined. Okay, but if we do the thing, 10, 3, box plate. The label's kind of okay there. A little space after it would be kind of nice. Yeah, that's a little better. Okay. Move message support box. Yeah, yeah, we have to come back to the drawing. I think I've got to do some. I think I should put like dotted line for the neighboring pleats because I think that really makes it more accurate and really like it's your pleat, like your set it runs from this point to this point. And so I think I should be dotted lines coming back, dotted lines, dotted lines, dotted lines. And I think I should handle military pleats, small gaps, overlaps, no gaps. All right. I don't know. We're gonna have to find out. This is a domain question. All right. So this is box pleat with small gap. Let's see if we can make one. So if the pleat width is a little bigger, gap should be bigger. Okay, so 0.75 is a big gap. Let's do 1.8. Okay, 1.2 inch gap. I've only got 3 inches, right? So I can't be too greedy. 1.2. Okay, if I did a 1.2 pleat, I got a 0.3 gap, third of an inch. It's probably a little big. I'm going to be arbitrary though. I'll just say like half an inch and then I'll get an answer. Let's see. So let's make it 6, 6, and pleat width is 2. Let's make a 3-inch pleat. It's a 1.5 gap. 6 inches, so you got 1.5 inches. Oh, wait a minute. Pleat width is 3 inches, so I've only got 1.5 inches for each one, 3/4 of an inch against the 3. That's a pretty big gap. 0.375. Yeah, I mean that's okay. Maybe that's okay. 0.375, and that's less than 1/2 inch. Okay, maybe 1/2 inch or less. Here's where I'd like to edit the gap. Okay, so if I got a 6-inch and I want a 1/2 inch gap, that means I got to be using 5.5 inches. Three gave me 1.5. 2.5 gives me 0.75. 75 gives me 1.1. 5 is 0.75. 4. 3. Okay, yeah, 2.3. It doesn't quite add up on the number of pleats side, but let's do a small gap. We'll just arbitrarily say 1/2 inch. Oops. And I expect small gap width. I don't know if I can fit that in my text box. All right. Then I may have to play with the type size. Let's see. So hip tip 10, set 6. Pleat width is 2.3. Then we get a gap with a small gap. Okay, well, that's going to fail since nothing does that. Okay, should be yep. Yep, all right. I'm going to change, since this is driven off the gap, I'm going to flip this around a little. If gap is nil, then this is true. I'll leave this here at the bottom too. Okay. If it's nil, that's returned. If it's 0, then it was box pleat. Else, if gap is less than 0.5, we're going to return box pleat with, maybe small is redundant there, gap. Okay, this should pass. Okay, now let's do the flip side. Yeah, you're right. I'll get there. I don't know. I'm liking this calculator on this side, but I don't see the messages as much. They're on a separate screen at an angle, so it takes me an extra moment to find that. So I'm not staring off into the distance. I'm reading. All right. Yeah, well, there's a problem. Okay. Let's see if we can generate it. Okay, if I take too little, 26. All right, pleat width 2, but if I just take 1, gap is 1.5, so let's take 1.5. Gap is minus, so that's still less than 1/2, but it's a pretty big overlap. All right, so let's make it 1.4 minus 0.9, 1.3 minus 1. Wow. 1, 2, 1.9. I guess I should be going that way. 1.8, 7, 6, 7. Okay. This gap is all right. Let's get this case. Whoops. Okay, I got 26, 1.7 box pleat with overlap. All right. Test with overlap. Oops. Oh, we didn't do it yet. Okay, let's do this. If the gap is less than 0 and greater than minus 0.5, then we do something else. Well, this is return box pleat with overlap. Is it? Okay, I think that's better. Okay, if the gap is less than 0 and greater than minus 0.5, so minus 0.4 is greater than minus 0.5, box plate with overlap. All right. So the bottom case is the gap. All right. 26. Pleat width is what do we say? 1.7. Box plate with overlap. Gap of overlap of almost ½ inch. All right. And then the last case, well, no, there's another case, right? If the gap is greater than 0.5, well, then the error case applies. And maybe, all right, we know if the gap is less than or equal to minus 0.5, it should be military box pleat. All right, let's get that one in there. Military. Okay, and I think this is 1.5 ought to do it. All right. Good. Okay. And this would sort of say if the gap is bigger than 0.5, that would still be type can't be determined. I almost want to say it's too large of a gap. Let's make sure this works. And really, that picture should become the military pleat picture. Now, all right. I guess this case could go up, right? If gap is less than 0 and greater than minus 0.5, otherwise it's less than 0.5, minus 5. Otherwise it's gap greater than 0. Okay, let's get this last case in. Okay, and I'll have to generate another one. Okay, so let's take 20 and 6. All right, 2. But if I do 3 inches, I think it can be partial. I mean, to me, like from the way the shapes go, I would say, at some point you're making a decision. Well, you can be symmetric and overlap is sort of the box plate with overlap. But at some point you say the overlap is just getting too much. Let's just move the overlap to one side and go with the military one. I don't think my wife looks at it the same way as that. So I think that's a place where reality is going to have to, or domain knowledge is going to have to make a decision. But I do feel like they're very related. Where the knife plate is kind of like only one side gets the pleat. These are much more close. Okay, 26. If I make this 3, a gap of 1.5, that's way too big. Okay. Box pleat with too large gap. And there may be some, I don't know. I'll get this in her hands hopefully in the next couple of days, and she'll have a chance to look. It's getting somewhere. Okay, that was interesting. I guess it was fast. All right, that's allowed. Well, I think we've covered the other cases, so this is just return. Box pleat with too large gap. Did I get the wrong text? Box pleat with too large gap. Military box pleat. Let's run that again. Oh, it was negative, wasn't it? Okay. 26. Pleat width of 2. Pleat width of... Well, no, 1 should be military. 3, was the gap negative? No. Oh, I didn't change this. Gap of 1.5. Yeah, I think that should. All right. Set message for all box pleat types and military. I think we're there. All right. So I'm happy with finishing that. We'll add this down here. All right. And then I think tomorrow we'll pick up on these error situations. See, tomorrow's Wednesday. Okay. Yeah, we'll do those error situations, and then we may look at the picture and try and at least label it correctly and deal with that gap. Well, maybe we can do this one first. All right, so thanks for today. Tomorrow it's 2 to 4:30 Eastern Time, and 6 to 8:30 Eastern Time, 6 to 8:30 p.m. UTC. Let's see, it needs more calculations. Yeah, that's all we need. All right, thanks for joining. Catch you again sometime. Bye-bye.